Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, unraveling the mysteries of our shared human experience. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of one of the most fascinating and influential trade routes in history, the Silk Road. This ancient network of pathways, which stretched over 4,000 miles from China to the Mediterranean, was a conduit for the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures between East and West. As we delve into the earliest history of the Silk Road, we find ourselves in the 2nd century BCE, during the reign of Emperor Wu Di of the Han Dynasty. It was a time of great expansion and exploration for the Chinese, who were seeking to establish trade relationships with their neighbors to the west. The Chinese historian Sima Qian writes of the heavenly horses that were sought after by the Chinese, which were said to possess exceptional strength and speed. These horses were found in the fertile valleys of modern-day Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, and the Chinese were willing to trade valuable goods such as silk, tea, and spices to acquire them. One of the key figures involved in the development of the Silk Road was Zhang Qian, a Chinese diplomat and explorer who lived during the 2nd century BCE. In 1308 BCE, Zhang Qian was sent by Emperor Wu Di on a mission to establish trade relationships with the neighboring countries to the west. He traveled through the treacherous mountain passes of the Pamir Range, braving harsh weather conditions and hostile tribes to reach the court of the Yuezhi people in modern-day Afghanistan. Although his mission was ultimately unsuccessful, Zhang Qian's journey marked the beginning of a new era of trade and cultural exchange between China and the West. As we explore the historical background of the Silk Road, we find that it was not just a single route, but rather a network of roads and trails that connected China with the Mediterranean. The earliest written records of the Silk Road date back to the 2nd century BCE during the reign of Emperor Wu Di. The Chinese historian Ban Gu writes of the Silk Road as a network of trade routes that stretched from China to the Mediterranean, passing through the kingdoms of Central Asia and the Middle East. The ancient cities of Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva, with their vibrant markets and bustling trade centers, stood as hubs of commerce and culture, attracting merchants and travelers from all corners of the known world. The city of Dunhuang, with its famous cave temples and vibrant marketplaces, was another major center of commerce and culture on the Silk Road. Located at the crossroads of the northern and southern routes, Dunhuang was a vital stopping point for traders and travelers who would rest and replenish their supplies before continuing on their journey. As we prepare to embark on the next stage of our journey, we find ourselves at the threshold of a new era in the history of the Silk Road. The early trade routes, established by intrepid explorers like Zhang Qian, had paved the way for a period of unprecedented growth and expansion as merchants and traders from all corners of the known world flocked to the Silk Road, seeking to exploit its vast commercial potential. The 7th to the 10th century CE were truly the heyday of the Silk Road, a time when the Tang dynasty in China and the Abbasid Caliphate in the Middle East were at the height of their power. During this period, the cities of Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva became major centers of commerce and culture, attracting scholars, artists, and merchants from as far away as India, Persia, and Byzantium. The city of Chang'an, modern-day Xi'an, was another hub of activity with its famous marketplaces and trade guilds. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Silk Road during this period was the exchange of goods and ideas between East and West. Chinese silk, tea, and porcelain were highly prized in the Middle East and Europe, while spices, textiles, and precious stones from India and Persia were eagerly sought after by the Chinese. The trade in horses, which had been a major factor in the early development of the Silk Road, continued to play an important role, with the Chinese seeking to acquire the finest breeds from Central Asia. As we explore the historical background of this period, we find that it was not just goods that were being exchanged, but also ideas and cultures. Buddhism, which had originated in India, spread along the Silk Road to China, Korea, and Japan, leaving a lasting legacy in the art, architecture, and literature of these regions. Similarly, Islamic scholars and traders introduced Arabic numerals, astronomy, and medicine to the Chinese, who in turn shared their knowledge of papermaking, printing, and gunpowder with the West. The famous Chinese traveler Xuanzang, who lived during the 7th century CE, is a testament to the cultural exchange that took place along the Silk Road. Xuanzang traveled from China to India and back again, studying Buddhism and collecting scriptures which he later translated into Chinese. His journey, which took over 17 years to complete, is a remarkable example of the determination and curiosity of the scholars and travelers who used the Silk Road. As the Persian poet Herodotus so eloquently put it, the world is a rose garden, and the Silk Road is its fragrance. Indeed, during this period, the Silk Road was a conduit for the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures between East and West, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to inspire wonder and appreciation today. As we prepare to embark on the final stage of our journey, we find ourselves at the threshold of a new era in the history of the Silk Road. The golden age of trade and cultural exchange is coming to an end, and the winds of change are blowing across the ancient trade routes. The 14th century CE marked a significant turning point in the history of the Silk Road, as the Black Death ravaged Eurasia, decimating populations and disrupting trade networks. The Mongol Empire, which had once unified vast swaths of the known world under a single ruler, began to fragment, and regional powers such as the Ming dynasty in China and the Timurid Empire in Central Asia rose to prominence. As trade along the Silk Road declined, many of the cities that had once thrived as major centers of commerce and culture began to fall into disrepair. Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva, which had been jewels of the Islamic world, slowly lost their luster, while Chang'an, modern-day Xi'an, was eventually eclipsed by other Chinese cities such as Beijing and Nanjing. Despite this decline, the Silk Road continued to exert a profound influence on the cultures it had touched. Buddhism, which had spread from India to China, Korea, and Japan along the Silk Road, remained a powerful force in East Asian spirituality, while Islamic scholars and traders continued to transmit knowledge of Arabic numerals, astronomy, and medicine to the Chinese. The legacy of the Silk Road can also be seen in the art and architecture of the regions it touched. The intricate tilework and calligraphy of Islamic mosques and madrasas, for example, reflect the cultural exchange that took place between the Middle East and Central Asia, while the Buddhist cave temples of Dunhuang and Luoyang remain testaments to the enduring power of Chinese Buddhist art. As we explore the historical background of this period, we find that it was not just the physical infrastructure of the Silk Road that declined, but also the intellectual and cultural currents that had once flowed so freely along its routes. The exchange of goods and ideas between East and West slowed to a trickle, and the world became a more fragmented and insular place. And yet, even as the Silk Road itself faded into memory, its legacy continued to inspire wonder and appreciation in those who followed in the footsteps of its traders, scholars, and travelers. As the Chinese poet Du Fu wrote, "The road goes on, though the traveler may not." Indeed, the spirit of adventure and discovery that had once driven men like Zhang Qian and Xuanzang to explore the unknown continues to animate us today as we strive to understand the complexities of our interconnected world. As we come to the end of our journey along the Silk Road, we find ourselves at a crossroads, looking out upon a vast expanse of history that stretches from the ancient cities of China and the Middle East to the modern metropolises of Europe and America. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.